you do for us and the fact that you all do work together. It means a great deal to us, whether we're city or county. And most of y'all know I'm a farmer. Ag hadn't been mentioned, but it's still the most important thing in this county and in your life. It is your linked life, remember that. We're gonna have a question and answer period now. I ask that you please remember, it is question and answer. If you have a question, stand, give your name, direct your question, or ask it of all of them, whichever way you prefer. And we will begin now.
That's the first. Jeremy Bell. I don't know really who to direct this to, but Mississippi is one of about half of the states with a parole board. When our judges send someone to prison and they give them a time, it seems like, and I say this from personal experience from working with the drug court, but the parole board can essentially vacate any order that the judge presents. I'll give you an example. If they owe a victim restitution and the judge orders them into the restitution center to pay that victim back, the parole board can overlook that and parole this person. Can anything be done to allow that defendant to go through with everything the judge orders in the sentencing order?
Everybody's looking at me. The parole board is a unique animal in and of itself. If you're involved in the drug court, you know kind of the role that they potentially play. They're supposed to be there as a safeguard, weighing everything and looking at a potential person who to judge if they maybe have served their debt to society in light of the sentencing that the judge gave them. I will tell you this, statewide, we have judges in certain places that sentence one way. And we would probably all consider maybe some of those sentences on the lighter end. And then you have other parts of the state where circuit court judges have some fairly strict sentencing guidelines and they stick to them and they want to see that they're carried out. And they even follow up on them and see what's going on there. And the parole board is thrown in the middle of all of that, figuring out what's best as cases come before them. And their task is pretty heavy. As you know, they all sit there, they're appointees by the governor to that board. That would have to be done if there was some sort of restriction or red line there. That would have to be done legislatively, because now they have that authority really just as MDOC does when it comes to potentially letting somebody out. Whether we're talking about overcrowding or we're talking about lack of funds. And that is one thing I will say to y'all as a group. We've got to figure out as Mississippians and as taxpayers what we can afford when it comes to housing prisoners and carrying out sentences. You know, I was a judge in a former life before I got in the legislature, and you know, I was probably known as a hanging judge. They came in, if they had done the crime, they were fixing to get their due sentence and their fine. And I saw to it that they paid it and it was carried out. Now I was municipal judge for several different cities and towns, so I never was on the circuit court level. But point being, we've got to figure out what we can afford, whether we're talking about cities, counties. You know, I represent Attala County now. As y'all know, we're bringing our prisoners to Leake County now because we can't afford the jail that the feds say we have to have to be sure that these prisoners, all their rights are met. We have to build a $5 million jail that we can't afford just to satisfy these federal requirements have nothing to do with state law. So then when you cast a little federal law over the state law, when it comes to rights for the convicted, it's a tough place to be, especially when you're the one who's picking up the tab when it's over with. But if you're saying reel the parole board in and who they're letting out, or they're waiving a sentence, or they're waiving restitution, that would have to be done statutorily.
May I narrow my question down a little bit? Do you mind?
Yes.
Round two? Specifically, last year, the circuit court sentenced a gentleman with I think maybe a DUI fifth or sixth. And let's take a DUI third. That is a statutory 12-month minimum.
Right.
They're serving 1 and 2 and 3 months, and they are being paroled off of that statute. They're statutorily serving 12 months, but the parole board is paroling them out before the 12 months. And when I worked with the drug court, you know, you have law enforcement to contact you. You know, they was serving probation with the drug court after they serve their statutory time. And they're wanting to know what's going on. They're supposed to serve, you know, 12 months, and the parole board is just releasing these people. So the law is already in place, it's just not being followed. They're overlooking statutory laws, and they're overlooking the judge's sentencing. So that one.
And I will tell you, I've heard from circuit judges too, not just
Oh,
from
I'm
you here
sure
today.
you have.
They're voicing their opinions on this. Because we've been working on some criminal justice reform, and they said, hey, while you're there looking at that, we would like you to look at these things, the specific things that you mentioned. I'm just saying, it's a fine line when, you know, some judges say, you're getting in my territory now, you know, y'all are, and you got your 3 branches of government, your judicial and legislative and executive, and they start saying, oh, you're getting over in mine. But then there are other judges who are inviting us to visit the issue just as you are.
Well, thank you for looking at it.
Yes, sir.